What do you think of when you think of a hero? Is it a superhero who has unbelievable powers to save people? Or is it local heroes such as police and firefighters who risk their lives to save others? Or perhaps it's a historical figure such as Martin Luther King. But if all heroes come in different types, is an outlaw who killed police, whether they may or may not have been corrupt, a hero of the people? Still today, the debate between whether or not Ned Kelly is a hero or a vicious killer still fills the air in conversations, articles, and even history books. But Ned Kelly never said he wasn't at fault. In fact, he said he just wanted people to hear his story and make their own opinion. So let's dive deep into this controversial history that is Ned Kelly, and comment down below whether he is a hero or a killer. John, who was convicted of stealing pigs in Ireland to feed his family, was sentenced to Australia to serve in a hard labor camp. After serving his time, he would eventually meet his wife, Ellen Quinn, and they would begin a family together. John did his best to provide for his increasingly large family, but his best was never good enough. Desperate to feed his family, Red was caught with animals belonging to someone else. As Ned watches his father leave, he knows that he is now the man of the house. As the oldest male of 8 children, Ned begins helping his mother around the house and tending to the farm and even dropping out of school. Now 6 months has passed and Red has been sent home after serving his time. Although Red was back, he wasn't himself. Struggling with life, Red began to drink heavily, unable to function day to day without drinking. Unfortunately, Red would only spend one final Christmas with the family because in 1866, John Kelly would die from liver failure. Now 12 years old, Ned and his family would move to Greta to be closer to his mother's sister. As a minor, Ned Kelly would get in trouble over the years, receiving 6 months of hard labor after punching Jeremiah McCormick, who confronted Ned Kelly after he insulted his wife. Ned Kelly was upset that Jeremiah was accusing a friend of Kelly's for stealing a horse. Ned Kelly would write an inappropriate letter wrapping a pair of calf testicles inside the letter and then delivering the package to Jeremiah's childless wife. Ned Kelly would find himself arrested again after being in possession of a stolen horse, serving 3 years. Now, to understand why police were considered corrupt, as mentioned by Ned Kelly, you have to know that there was a huge division amongst the people. There were the squatters and the selectors. Squatters would use their wealth and connection to enlist the law and the police on their behalf. This would cause an injustice among the poor selectors. As a son of an Irish convict, Ned Kelly already felt that law enforcement was against him from the day he was born. In 1878, a warrant was issued for Ned Kelly's younger brother, Dan, on charges of a theft of a horse. Constable Fitzpatrick went to serve the warrant, but an altercation arose and Fitzpatrick would get shot. Now there's 2 versions of this story. Fitzpatrick states that he arrived at the homestead and found that Dan Kelly was not there. Waiting a few hours with Ellen Quinn, he had stepped outside. While outside, he noticed 2 horses arriving to the homestead. Dan Kelly and Bill Skilling had arrived home when Fitzpatrick had walked inside and made the arrest. Dan Kelly had requested to stay and have dinner with the family before leaving, which Constable Fitzpatrick agreed to. Ned Kelly would burst in, fire a shot and miss. Ellen Quinn would then smack the constable over the head. Ned and Fitzpatrick would continue to struggle when 2 more shots were fired and Fitzpatrick would be shot in the wrist. Then, threatening to kill Fitzpatrick if he was to mention anything that had happened, they released him. The Kelly family stated a completely different version. When Fitzpatrick had arrived, Ellen Quinn stated that she requested to see the warrant for Dan's arrest. Fitzpatrick stated that he had forgotten the warrant, which Mama Kelly basically said, "Dan's not leaving." Smelling of alcohol, Fitzpatrick would pull a revolver and threaten Ellen Quinn if she was to get involved, distracting Fitzpatrick by stating that he saw Ned Kelly approaching just outside the house. While Fitzpatrick was looking outside the window, Dan would then disarm Fitzpatrick and send him on his way unharmed, suggesting that any wounds would have been self-inflicted. Now, once Fitzpatrick had made his report, they would send 20 officers to arrest the Kelly family for attempted murder of a police officer. Now, Dan Kelly had taken off to hide in the bush. However, the police did arrest Bill Skilling and Williamson, along with Mama Kelly, sentencing both men to 6 years of hard labor and the pregnant Ellen Kelly to 3 years of hard labor for assisting in attempted murder of a police officer. Ned, who was miles away from the homestead, hears word of the situation and goes into hiding to meet up with Dan. Now declared as outlaws, Ned and Dan have lost all civil liberties and can now be shot on sight. Ned and Dan continue to hide down by the creek for another 6 months, trying to survive. Steve Hart and Joe Bryan, 2 old friends of the boys, would join them in the woods. The Kelly gang is then formed between the 4 men. However, just a mile or 2 away, 4 police officers are camped out looking for Ned Kelly. When Ned Kelly discovered the police officers, he silently approached the camp. The Kelly gang would then approach 2 officers who were sitting around a fire and demand that they would surrender. One of those officers would reach for his gun and get shot. When the other 2 officers returned from their search, they were forced to surrender. They also grabbed at their guns, and the Kelly gang would then shoot and kill them. The one officer who was still alive escaped by running off. Ned Kelly would later state that he had no choice but to kill these police officers because they were well armed, and one of the horses was carrying leather straps that was commonly known for lashing people. Now, with the death of the police at Stringy Bark Creek, police were given emergency power to enter in the premises and, without warrant, arrest anyone who was involved in the killings. This would lead to innocent people being arrested and even held for weeks. The public was no longer supportive of the police, and resentment began to build. With an uprising of civilians being upset with the police, Ned decided that funds needed to be raised to give to the sympathizers who may need bail money. Headed into town, the Kelly gang would then rob 2 banks at 2 different towns without ever firing a single shot. Then, distributing the money amongst the sympathizers, the Kelly gang would then go back into hiding. Many people suspected that the 4 men had actually escaped the country. However, in June, Ned would ensure that everyone knew that he was still in town when he would arrive at the home of Aaron Sherritt, a friend of Bryan who had turned into an informant, by shooting him in the neck as he opened the door, alerting the troopers inside that the Kelly gang was there. Assuming that the troopers would call reinforcements who would come rushing by train, Ned then derailed the train, armed sympathizers, and took hostages at the Glen Rowan Inn. Ned's plan had not actually gone to plan. The troopers who were supposed to alert the police actually hid under the bed until Sunday afternoon. When they did telegraph the police, it had already been a while, and the Kelly gang had begun drinking, singing, and even befriending the hostages. One of these hostages had gained the trust of Ned and was even allowed to go free. Now, that same hostage would be the same one that prevented the locomotive from crossing over the damaged tracks. Realizing that the plan was no longer going the way it should have, the sympathizers actually refused to bear arms and decided they didn't want to fight anymore. Rather than giving up, the Kelly gang retreated to the hotel. Now, the police surround the inn, and Ned Kelly burst through the door and shots were fired back and forth. With iron-armored suits, the Kelly gang then pushed forward towards the tree lines. Once Ned had made it to the woods, he sees that the remaining men did not survive. Turning back and headed into the line of fire, walking slowly as the bullets ring off of the armor. Ned advances the police until he is shot in the leg. Now here's where the debate becomes heated. Ned Kelly is believed to have planned a battle with police to help the sympathizers, who had recently been treated badly and gained an overwhelming, unwanted welcome into the community. Now, if the sympathizers had helped and they were successful, the police would have reacted more harshly and would have caused the entire community to be involved. However, when the plan began to fall apart, the supporters were no longer willing to fight. Kelly now stands trials for robberies and for murders, but He's never held for the attempted murder of Fitzpatrick or even for the crimes committed at Glen Rowan. Why did Ned Kelly only stand trial for the murders of the police officers in the Stringy Bark Creek? Why did 60,000 people from the community sign petitions to save Ned's life? Is Ned Kelly a hero or a cop killer? Let us know down in the comments below, and check out this video of an actual hero, Emiliano Zapata. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I can't wait to see you guys again for another episode of Beard History.